Hello and welcome to 10 Minutes to a Better Building, a podcast brought to you by Boland. I am your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney, and we're talking about how to get the best filtration with the lowest life cycle costs. If you were able to join us for our last podcast, we're talking about how to improve the air quality of your building, which will be talked about in this episode as well. But it comes with a cost. When you have products and services that are helping to build that air quality, you do have to pay for it. So today's podcast is talking about ways that not only will these products save you money, but you can actually save money by putting these products in. And I can't wait to bring on our guest. Once again, Josh Howell is joining me. He is the Commercial Territory Manager for Dynamic Air Quality Solutions. And Josh, I so enjoyed our conversation last time. Looking forward to this as well. So thank you for joining me again.
I am ready to go. This is my bread and butter here, the financial side. It's what I get excited about. I'm ready.
Yeah, I was going to say, this really is your wheelhouse because you're a finance guy who is now kind of working in a different part of the field, but they're kind of merging together. So before we get into this conversation, can you give us a brief bio so people learn a little bit more about who they're about to hear from?
Yeah, so I'm the Commercial Territory Manager for Dynamic Air Quality Solutions. I've been here about 6 years with Dynamic, and I'm a certified air filtration specialist. Been to multiple engineering schools on HVAC and filtration specifically. But I would say I am the regional expert for Dynamic.
Okay. So if you missed our last episode, which I highly encourage you to go back and listen and watch that episode if you missed it, but we talked about indoor air quality, or IAQ, the importance of IAQ, and more importantly, maybe how to, not only when you get to that best air quality, how to maintain it. So can you give us a bit of a recap on what we talked about last time?
The recap is trade-offs. In any building, you have to make a decision, and it's do I want to invest in the IEQ for my employees, my students, my patients, right? If I'm healthcare, and at what cost from a dollar percentage, right? Like from an energy and maintenance dollar, like you always have to make a decision. It's, well, I want this much protection, but can my system even handle this much protection? There's all kinds of stuff that goes into it. And we see the struggle of people having to make tough choices. Do I care more about the people? Do I care more about the bottom line? And it's an everyday thing in the filtration world.
Indoor air quality is important for all of us, but it's especially vital in healthcare facilities, as we know. So can you give us any examples of maybe how this filtration system works in those type of instances?
Yeah. So as we were talking about the V8, we essentially a passive filter that's electronically enhanced. It's a polarized media technology, and what it gives you is better air quality from a small stuff perspective, if I could say it like that. And so what you get is an increased air quality with less of the energy penalty, actually less energy than the other filters. So actually energy savings, but better IEQ. And healthcare is very specific on what they want to use. They always want to use the best. They're expected to have the best, right? They're a hospital, and they typically have multiple levels of filtration and probably, ultraviolet light somewhere as a pathogen killer or sterilizer, as they would say. But the challenge with that is a huge energy consumer. And what we've seen with our product is that if you have 3 beds of filtration, which typically a hospital has, they have 3 types of filters and increasing efficiencies. We would come in and replace the first 2 with our product, right? And it's built to do everything those 2 should do. And what we can do is we can give you, a payback on those. So financially, over the course of, let's say, 5-10 years, you're going to save money on those 2 filters. You're not going to have any maintenance cost. But from the IEQ side, because we're so much better than passives, we can actually extend the life of that critical filter, the HEPA filter. And in some cases, up to 5x as long. Those filters are the most expensive filters on the market. So we can protect that resource while making your overall air quality better and saving you that energy on the front end.
I know you work with a lot of healthcare systems, but in addition to that, you've also seen a spike in some educational institutions and government buildings as well. So let's talk about that. Is there any help maybe in the way of financial support or funding for those entities, especially when it comes to nonprofits?
Most customers that we go to, especially the higher ed, museum, institutional market, love the product and they love all the benefits in there. And we have the data to back it up. So it's kind of undeniable. It's just, how do we get the money from a first cost standpoint to buy this filtration system? And we really saw a huge spike with the CARES Act for COVID, right? Because the CARES Act was buckets of money that higher ed, K through 12 could use to increase their IEQ protection for COVID type deal. And we really were successful with those types of grant monies or money or funding, because now I can use a bucket of money that's not coming out of my pocket and still save my building all this energy and all this maintenance cost, versus I could just up my filtration with passive filters, but now I'm still paying for it, right? So like that was one way. The other way is we work with utility companies to do rebates. So rebates are available. To my knowledge, we're one of the only filters on the market that even qualifies for a rebate. So that's just lost savings with standard filters. So that can buy down some of my first costs as much as 60% in some cases. So now we're looking really good. Now we're taking 5-year paybacks to 2-year paybacks because we can get rebates on half of it. So government funding, rebates. The other thing I would say is that typically when a customer buys an entire HVAC package, right? Let's say they buy from Bolin, they buy air handlers, fans, chillers, everything. They don't pay for that day one, right? They finance it over the course of however many years. Let's say 20 years, the life of the equipment. From a straight dollar perspective, a typical customer pays about 10 cents per cubic feet of air. So stay with me a little bit on this. 10 cents per cubic feet of air a year. That's typically what the P&L budget is. Our product is $1 for that CFM of air, paid one time, right? If we now finance that over 20 years, I'm now 5 cents, right? $1 divided by 2. There's no more paying. So from a financial standpoint, if I'm financing a package, I can take care of my filters up front, pay half the cost that I'm paying from a P&L item, right? The 10 cents over the life of that 20 years. So I've paid half now for my filters. It's just a different way to pay for it. And that's kind of why we are so different, is it's a totally different go-to-market kind of product.
Yeah. You talk about savings over the course of the long run, but there are other ways that facilities are seeing some savings as well, maybe not in the typical bottom line fashion that we think of. We're talking about discounts, carbon footprint, and then even higher productivity. So can you give us some examples of how that works?
Yeah, all that. So things that I can't put a dollar amount on, right? Typically, when you save that much energy, the first thing that comes to mind is sound. And you wouldn't think that it would be that big of a deal, but if I'm saving your fans, right, they don't have to push as hard. 1/3 of the energy. They run slower, they run quieter, so they last a lot longer. So the sustainability of the entire equipment can be affected by the filters. And I can't put a dollar amount on that because it's different in every application. But the dB level is a big deal for things like museums, libraries. It's something they really care about, but there's not a financial analysis for that. The other thing is what I talked about in the last one is blow by. Like the way filters are installed, when you don't get that IAQ performance just because there's air going through cracks, I am going to guarantee you that we're going to get our lab tested performance in your building, but I can't put a dollar amount on that, right? How much value is that to the customer? It should be value. And then lastly, the decarbonization thing. When we talk about saving kilowatts and being able to not have to make as many kilowatts and throwing away filters, 500-600 of filters in these, these universities and K through 12s that they have to store, then throw away, then dispose of. And from an environmental footprint, our calculation is a 90% reduction in landfill with our product. Can't put a dollar amount on it, but all these big cities, Atlanta has made a decarbonization sustainability goal by 2050. We're starting to see it all pick up, and decarbonization 100% goes into landfill and the amount of trash and stuff we have to burn or dispose of. So all that stuff is pretty substantial. That it's not included in any numbers, any bottom line numbers.
Yeah. Of course, no solution is perfect. We want to put a disclaimer out there. So what are some challenges maybe that you've seen, and is it worth it for everyone?
I mean, I would say it's worth it for everyone, but
you might be a little biased.
Yeah, I know. There are situations, right? Like we do hospitals sometimes and they just are happy with what they have. And if they haven't had any issues, right, any hospital-borne infections or any issues with filtration, they're pretty reluctant to change, even if there are savings, because as you said, it's a liability type deal for some customers. And even though they're not denying that the benefits, it's that we're comfortable, right? Sometimes you get that with government. The other thing you get is if you have a space where you really don't care about air quality. And there's not many, but stuff like warehouse space, public storage, storage facilities, we can provide an energy and maintenance savings, but you may not need the level of IEQ that we have because you don't have people or you don't have a concern. So there's a couple situations, but in general, 90% of people, 95% of building owners, they should care about this, and they probably don't know that there's a solution like dynamic out there. And that's the biggest thing that we want to get out today, is that there are better ways to do filtration.
And if people are hearing this and saying, you know what, I want to learn more, how do they do that?
You can go to our website first. We have on there, we have a counter on there saying all the kilowatts we've saved. And it always goes up. We've got carbon footprint, pounds of carbon saved on there. You can see some case study type stuff. But if you really want to get into doing a financial analysis and seeing how drastic the savings are for what you have, get up with me or get up with your Bolin trained representative. If you know anybody from Bolin, they probably know me. They have my contact, as we are partners with them in the DC area.
And it's a free financial analysis. So really it's nothing to lose and everything to gain potentially if this is a good fit for you.
Hey, you're correct. Our number one goal is to help people and to provide solutions. And I'll go as far as I like to walk sites. If you'll have me at your site, and then I can really tell you how much we can help. But yeah, all that's free. All that we do as a service because we believe in the product.
He'll even give autographs for his appearance on these podcasts at the stardom that ensues. Josh Howell, he is a commercial territory manager, Dynamic Air Quality Solutions. Josh, thank you so much for your time. Great information. Again, part 2 of talking about indoor air quality. And we really just kind of skimmed the surface on, the importance of air quality in the last episode, and really got down to the nuts and bolts of just how much money you can save over the long run, but in other ways as well, and reducing that carbon footprint too. So a lot of clear wins here, and hopefully a lot of people out there may be able to take advantage of those wins as well. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Yeah, great conversation. I want to thank all of our listeners and viewers out there for tuning into 10 Minutes to a Better Building, a podcast brought to you by Bolin, talking about not only how to improve air quality, but the best filtration with the lowest life cycle cost. And you heard Josh talk about how if you want more information about a free financial analysis, you can visit the website. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney. Once again, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you soon.